Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Humble Theology, where we are looking at the book of Revelation, chapter 8. Sorry for the week off. I was sick, family sick, all that fun stuff. But we're back up and running again. So let's look at Revelation chapter 8 together. Just starting to read. When the Lamb opened the seventh seal, so we're picking back up with the seven seals. We had an interlude in chapter 7. Looking back at chapter 6, we had the first set of seals. Now we're up to the seventh final seal. And what happens is when the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. Okay, we're going to pause there. The seventh seal is opened, and what happens? Silence. What do you make of that? Well, silence can be a reference for judgment. If we think back, or if you want to turn back, I'll pop it up on the screen for Romans chapter 3, looking at verse 19, says, "Now we know that whatever the law says, it speaks to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be stopped, and the whole world may be held accountable to God." So silence. And we'll see later on, not trying to jump ahead, but Battle of Armageddon, the world's armies in some way, shape, or form are arrayed against God, and he comes thundering through, white horse, sword of fire, all this kind of stuff. And in his depiction of him coming into the scene, what shot is fired? Not one. It's quiet. Every knee bows, every tongue confesses. That's all that. And you think about when you think you're going to go into a fight. This is depicted in movies sometimes, and you're like, I'm going to get him, and they go into the fight, and they see how big the bad guy, the good guy, whoever it is, their opponent is, and they cower away. I didn't say anything. They shrink back from that fight almost immediately because they totally understand that they have no chance of winning. And that's what happens in judgment. God presents himself in his fullness and glory. It's done. Everything is over. Weapons, any of those thoughts, intentions are laid down. There's no fighting God. And that's what I think we get here at the very opening verse of chapter 8, is this depiction that basically God comes in, the seventh seal. Again, seven seals. What are we talking about in seven seals? Again, just backtracking, a scroll is presented. It's a scroll of the end of all things. There's seven seals, seven things, completion, but perfect completion. God's timing is now complete, and the Lamb is opening those seals. And in the seventh one, judgment. And what does that judgment do? It brings silence to everything. So chapter 8, then back at verse 2, "Then I saw," and we've talked about this before, John's use of "then I saw" is not sequential order in an amillennial presentation of things. "Then I saw" just means this is what he saw next. I've described it before as like if you're looking at a toy car or a diamond or something, you look at it from the front. Well, it's different than looking at it from the side or looking at it from the top or the bottom. Those aspects look different, but you're looking at the same item from different angles. John is being shown history unraveling, reaching the end of all things. And what does history do? What does it wrap up at the end? Well, he's showing it to us from these different angles. So then I saw seven angels who stand before God, and seven trumpets were given to them. So now we went from seven seals to seven trumpets. Is this seven different things? No. In my view, the seven trumpets is a repeat, in a sense, again, slightly different angles, but a re-emphasis of what we just had in the seals. So in these trumpets, what do we have? And another angel came and stood at the altar with a golden censer, and he was given much incense to offer with the prayers of the saints on the golden altars before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints rose before God from the hand of the angel. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire from the altar and threw it on the earth. And there were peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightnings, and an earthquake. So think about this. When we go back up to the scrolls, what is our overlap here? Before the scrolls were open, we also had a scene in heaven, in God's throne room, where the saints were basically demanding almost of God that he take his vengeance upon things. And then obviously that's when the scroll was brought out, and things progressed with the opening of those seals. Excuse me. Same thing here. So we have the throne room as our starting point. We have an incense of prayers of the saints rising before God again. So again, a very similar overlap. And what are now these, instead of moving into 7 seals, now we're going to move into 7 angels with trumpets. And again, seals, something very important that was sealed and hidden from everybody. Well, now 7 trumpets, something very profound being announced and presented, especially in trumpets, the blowing of things for battle. Battle signals were used for trumpets. The announcement of the presence of a king coming into the world, or into a room, or into a space, would be announced by trumpets. So now in verse 6, now the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared to blow them. The first angel blew his trumpet, and there followed hail and fire mixed with blood, and these were thrown upon the earth, and 1/3 of the earth was burned up, and 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all the grass, all the green grass was burned up. So think about the images that were given. Again, in an amillennial position, these end time events are symbolic of all of history. So we're being shown things that have occurred in damaging ways throughout all of history, that even when they occurred in our temporal world, we see them as God's judgment. When have we heard about hail and fire before? Well, all the way back at Exodus. One of the things God used as a judgment on Egypt, the Israel leaving Egypt, was upon the Egyptians in Exodus there, was fire mixed with hail, or hail mixed with fire. So we have a picture of that, a picture of judgment coming upon the earth. And we've seen hail, we've had fire, maybe not always mixed together, obviously. But these things, again, but this is the finality of these things coming together in God's day. So this trumpet blast initiates this destruction. But again, this isn't chaotic destruction. This isn't just the world falling into chaos. It says only 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and 1/3 of a third of the earth was burned up. So it's controlled, it's tempered. God's still in control. It's not just look at all this chaos. Christians can still rely on God in these times. And the second angel, verse 8, blew his trumpet. Something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. 1/3 of the sea became blood. There's another image, all the way back to Egypt, all the way back to Exodus. Water becoming like blood. 1/3 of the living creatures in the sea died, and 1/3 of the ships were destroyed. Verse 10, the third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from heaven, blazing like a torch, and it fell on 1/3 of the rivers of the springs of the water. The name of the star is Wormwood. 1/3 of the waters became wormwood, and many people died from the water because it had been made bitter. So again, just think of the death and destruction that we've seen throughout all of history, these things culminating in an ending age and an ending time frame. But we don't need to go run to the newspaper or whatever news channel you watch to. Does anybody even use a newspaper anymore? But your online news source, whatever that may be, and look for these things. These things are always going on, and yet in their declaration, we should always have the expectation of, oh, this rings true to me about the coming judgment of God. And then what we hearken back Again, keep all the book in context. Go back to the first 3 chapters, the letters to the churches. What are we being taught? We're to listen to these judgments, listen to these things, because they should key us in when we hear them. Oh, the end of all things, the end of sin, the end of death, and what is their end? Their end is destruction. And so if they're being destroyed, then I shouldn't be compromising with them here in the end times. And again, for an amillennial, the end times was ever since Christ left. We've been in these ending ages, the last age, I guess you could say. Verse 12, the 4th angel blew his trumpet. 1/3 of the sun was struck, 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars, so that 1/3 of their light might be darkened, and 1/3 of the day might be kept from shining, and likewise 1/3 of the night. So again, just destruction. We have it in thirds, kind of indicating there's a sense of control going on. And then verse 13, then I looked and heard an eagle crying with a loud voice as it flew directly overhead. Woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth at the blast of the other trumpets that the 3 angels are about to blow. So kind of, again, we hit an interlude of sorts where we've had 4 trumpets out of 7 presented to us. 3 are about to come, but this eagle circling over top. And what does an eagle do when it circles? It's about to just drop in immediately. And that thief in the night, that unexpected kind of descent and attack. And he's crying out, whoa, whoa, whoa. If you thought, in a sense, my paraphrase, if you thought these first 4 judgments were bad, wait till you see the next 3. And that's where chapter 8 leaves us off at. So kind of a cliffhanger. Join me in this study for chapter 9 next time. Again, if you like this, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. And we'll try to keep good biblical teaching on the internet free. It doesn't cost you anything to hit that subscribe or like button and all that good stuff. So take care. We'll see you again next time. God bless. Bye-bye.